Hello YouTube and welcome to another commentary video. The last two were kind of negative in flavor, so this time I thought we could talk about something a little bit more positive, and that is video game music. One of the most important aspects of any game, for me at least, nowadays. I didn't care about it that much when I was a little kid, but as I played more games and as I heard more awesome songs, it kind of grew on me. It did grow on me, and nowadays I really pay attention to not only graphics, gameplay, and whatnot, but also music, because there are some really good soundtracks out there from some of my favorite games that I will mention, not just yet, in a little bit. But yeah, video game music is probably my most listened to genre of music. Of course, I listen to more, traditional songs. I don't know how the fuck I should call them, like songs from artists and bands and whatnot. But I also have my favorite composers from video games and video game series. And yeah, so I thought that we could basically, well, I could start from 8-bit, start from the original NES, and then kind of work my way up to the current generation of consoles, and kind of talk about some of my favorite songs and game series that had really good music. And of course, the first song that I ever heard was from the original Super Mario Brothers on the NES. World 1-1, everyone knows that song. It is by far the most well-known game song ever. Even people who don't play games know the song. Well, at least most of the time. And it really helped make that game even more of a classic than it already is. And it's a very catchy tune. It's easy to remember, it sticks to mind, and it's fairly upbeat and happy. And of course, at that point, it was something that I could just whistle. I didn't put too much thought into it. Uh, I I do have to admit, I do have to say that I can't really play any of the songs due to copyright reasons. I guess I could get away with playing a little bit of them, like 10 seconds or so, but that wouldn't really do these songs any justice. I can leave links in the description and so forth, so you can check those out if you want. Other 8-bit goodness, I'd have to mention Mega Man. Mega Man always had very good music, even though the game was really fucking difficult and I hated it because I could never finish it. But it had really good music. Dr. Wily's Castle, I believe it was 1 out of 2 or something of that sort. That was a really good song, and it still is. DuckTales, the Moon theme, 8-bit songs. I think, well, of course, Super Mario Brothers 3 had awesome songs. Well, kind of wasn't that surprising. And I'm trying to think other 8-bit songs that I really enjoyed. I didn't play Final Fantasy on the NES. We'll get to that a bit later, so I can't really talk about that. But yeah, I think those are the main ones, like Mario, of course, Zelda, of course. Forgot that. Mega Man, really awesome songs, and of course DuckTales. Well, basically there's only one song from DuckTales, and that's the Moon theme, which is really awesome. I didn't really have that much experience in playing Super Nintendo because we didn't have one, but I do remember playing ActRaiser and Killer Instinct, though Killer Instinct is a fighting game, and those usually don't go too heavy in the music department. ActRaiser did have some good songs, but I don't remember anything about them because I was only a little kid and I only played it for a little bit. But the PlayStation and N64 or Nintendo 64, that was really the era when I really started getting more into music because of drum roll, Final Fantasy, of course. Nobuo Uematsu, who is the composer, or who was, is, I'm not sure if he's working for Square anymore. He was the composer for the series, and Final Fantasy is my favorite series of all time in terms of games, and most likely in terms of music as well. And it just has so many good songs, so many good songs. I could talk about those probably for hours. Final Fantasy 7, of course, 8 and 9. I guess I could say 9 is musically the best. Of course, 6 had good songs as well, but I didn't play it until much later. But yeah, 9 is probably from the 3 PlayStation ones, probably my favorite, even though I still prefer 7 as a game. But we're not talking about which is the better game, we're talking music. But all of them, all in all, excellent soundtracks for all of them, and really got me into like looking more up on certain composers, like looking up if they've done any other games other than the ones that I've played, just to hear other music that they might have done. And after that, I think uh, it was the GameCube era. GameCube, PlayStation 1, and Xbox. Now, of course, I didn't own a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox, so I can't really speak for those. And what I got and what the minority got in general was the GameCube, which is probably my favorite game console of all time. But that is not the topic. It had awesome games with awesome soundtracks, including The Wind Waker, which is my favorite Zelda, and it had some of the best songs that I've ever heard. Tales of Symphonia was another one. Probably not many have heard of that, which is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. And once again, I could go on forever and ever to talk about these games. Well, their songs. But since we're limited on time, I will not. Of course, I do have to mention Final Fantasy X from the PS2, which also has some of the best songs that I've heard. Sadly, I didn't get to play it on the PS2. I would have wanted to, because it's always best to play old games, or older games. It's not that old as of yet on the original consoles. But after that, we get to the last / current generation. Like I said, no PS3 or 360, so we're on the Wii, which many people didn't like, but I enjoyed it. It was a good console in my opinion. Of course, had its shortcomings, as does every console. But let's see. Of course, there was another Zelda game, Super Mario Galaxy. Those had good soundtracks. And then there's a little game called Xenoblade. I don't think many of you have heard of it. If you have, then you're a friend of mine. Instantly, because that game has one of the best soundtracks that I've ever heard. Like, it is so good. It is godly. It is godlike. It is... I could listen to it for hours, and I could talk about it for hours as well. Some of the best songs that I've ever heard, like in general, are on that soundtrack. And it really made the game a lot better. Of course, I do have to mention an even smaller game on the Wii, which even less of you have probably heard, which is called Fragile Dreams. A fairly obscure title. I loved it, good game, but even a better soundtrack. And that was the perfect example of a soundtrack really helping create an atmosphere for the game and really enhance the story and the characters. And it was a very emotional game, and the soundtrack really helped with that. Sadly, I don't think there's going to be a sequel, or I don't know if the composer was gonna do any other work apart from Fragile Dreams, but that was a fairly good game and even a better soundtrack. Then, of course, I do have to mention, since I haven't talked about PC, um, of course, there's only one or two game series that I need to mention, and those are the two giants from Bethesda, Fallout and the Elder Scrolls, which I'm actually listening to the Oblivion soundtrack as I do this. Of course you can't hear it, but kind of helps me concentrate, and it sounds so good. Oblivion has one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Like, it is, the composer, Jeremy Soule, is my most listened to artist on Last.fm, if you know that site. Kind of tracks whatever you listen to for everyone to see, and Jeremy Soule is at the top, and I've listened to the Oblivion soundtrack over and over and over again. Whenever I play a game that sounds don't really matter, like this one, Diablo 3, I have music on. Usually it's Oblivion. And then of course Skyrim has a good soundtrack as well, but I prefer Oblivion pretty much. Pretty much. I prefer Oblivion by far. I mean, that's not to say that Skyrim has a bad soundtrack or anything, but as a game and for the soundtrack as well, I've always thought of Oblivion as being the superior of the two games. But I'm gonna start wrapping things up, so to speak. It's going up on the 12-minute mark. So now I'd like to ask you to mention some of your favorite songs. Could be from 8-bit, could be from a million bit. Wherever, whenever, whatever you feel worth mentioning, please do write a comment about it. And of course, you can leave a link, I guess. Like, you can have the /watch and then the code. But YouTube doesn't allow actually linking with an actual link, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Hopefully it does. But yeah, please do comment. I'd love to hear some of your favorite songs from video games evers. I don't have really one song that like sticks to mind as being the greatest video game song I've ever heard. But like I said, there's so many dimensions. I could talk about this for ages. But for the lack of well, being kind of restricted on time, I'm gonna list a few of my favorites in the description, so you can listen to those if you want. And of course, like I said, this is the third time now. Do leave a comment. I enjoy reading those. And of course, you can always rate the video with whatever you deserve, with whatever you think it deserves. But that's gonna be it for this time. This has been Chocobotamer rambling on about video game music and how he loves it very, very much. Hopefully you enjoyed watching and listening. Thank you, and I will see you guys next time.